Hi, welcome to the course Rigging of 3D Characters in 60 Minutes with Maya 2020. Along these lessons, I'm going to show you how to create a complete corporal rig for animation, saving time and work. We'll start indicating the position of the bones to automatically create the rig with a single click. After that, we're going to modify the rig to add necessary functions when we animate 3D characters such as reverse foot control as well as automate it. Like this, we will have a complete rig. After that, I will give you tips for waiting to have good quick deformations. You will also learn to create exact deformations, better known as corrected lens shapes, with a new pose edit. Finally, we'll personalize the shape and color of our controllers, as well as add personalized functions to the rig to facilitate the control of the character to the animator. At the end of the course, we will have created 3 rigs and solved the most common problems presented in the process. This is the ideal course if you want to learn to create complete rigs for animation, saving time and work in any version of Maya, including 2020. Hi friends, how is it going? Welcome to the first course of 2020. We are starting with an excellent course named Rigging of 3D Characters with Maya 2020 in 60 minutes. Yes, you heard it right. We know that the process of rig is a little complicated and it requires time and work. We are going to do a complete rig similar to the one in our course Rigging for Characters in Maya that you can find in our website ray3d.com, but in this case it'll be made automatically and with some improvements. So that's precisely why we highlighted the main characteristic of this course. We are going to create a complete rig, and I'm explaining the rig that we're going to have. We're going to have a complete corporal rig, meaning that this course doesn't include facial rig. Finishing this course will release the continuation of this course, focusing facial rig, since we're going to show 2 types of facial rigs, but this one is focusing corporal rig. And what do I mean by this? In less than 60 minutes, we are going to have a complete corporal rig. What do I mean by this is that we are going to have F key and I key in the arms to be able to emulate any movement. We are going to have, besides the controller of the wrist, the elbow and the shoulder, the controller of the clavicle, the base of the shoulder, okay? We are also going to have a controller for the hips, additional to the center of gravity. A controller specifically for the hips. And of course, the reverse foot control for the foot, to raise the foot from the heel, flex the instep and the tiptoe. Like this, we will have a complete corporal rig in less than 60 minutes. This considering, of course, the average speed of a Maya user. Considering someone not too slow but not too fast, the average user. We could even have the rig in less time, okay? I am considering that time including the waiting, so if you consider it, 60 minutes is really fast. So this method that I'm going to show you is pure gold. It's gold what I'm showing you. And to prove that the course delivers what it promises, in the course we are not going to rig only this character. Instead, we are going to rig 3 characters: Hulk, the superhero, as well with a complete rig with the weighting without the facial rig. Yes, we will control the movement of the head, but the facial rig is not included. I repeat, we'll release a continuation course that will focus on the facial rig, but in this course we are going to rig these 3 characters: Hulk, the superhero, and our little character of the monkey from the game Donkey Kong Jr., I believe. So 3 rigs in a single course. That proves the speed of the process and the technique we are going to use. I repeat, these are complete rigs, complete corporal rigs. F key, I key in arms, the 4 controllers of the arm, the clavicle, the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. Of course, controller in the fingers. We are going to have the center of gravity and the controller for the hips, as well as the reverse foot control. Oh, and we're also going to have the controller for the column and the head. So it's a very complete rig that I'm going to show you. The speed of the technique we're going to use is impressive. So it's gold what I'm going to show you, because this will save you a lot of time and work when you rig your characters. And if we complement this course with the one we're going to have as continuation of this one for the facial rig, it will have the same technique to accelerate the workflow. In this course, as resume, we're going to create 3 complete rigs in less than 60 minutes per rig. So all this rig in less than 60 minutes, this one in less than 60 minutes, and this one in less than 60. Not the 3 of them in 60 minutes, because that will be too much, okay? But even so, the speed is impressive, so I hope you enjoyed this course. And something that I wanted to comment is that these 3 characters, we chose them for being the ones we've been working on in different courses in Ray 3D. And because it doesn't matter if they have their arms down like Hulk, or up as T-pose, or if your character has 5 fingers, or in this case, if it has 4 fingers. It doesn't matter. So precisely for that, I chose these characters. It doesn't matter the amount of fingers they have, or even if they are in T-pose, or with the arms down, or in another position. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this course, and we'll meet in the next lesson. Okay, let's start in this lesson to create the rig of the superhero. Let's analyze a little our character in scene. We are using the viewport 2.0. So we have activated the shadow, so the scene is more pleasant. So we have the shadows, of course, with the number 7 illumination mode. We also have the ambient occlusion for the shading of the character. And of course, a couple of lights for our scene that you can rotate to move the shadow, okay? So it's a very simple scene. So I'm just going to hide the lights so they don't get in our way in the scene. And let's visualize the outliner. Remember, from many windows, outliner, you can see it. So we have a group of blend shapes of this character, since we created him before, okay? And even though the course doesn't cover facial rig, we have this group, okay? And inside we have all the blends of the character. If you want to see them, you can go to the channel box. I'm opening a window. And now you can see here all the blend shapes of the character, okay? In this group. We have the character and we have the floor, okay? Something very important for this method is that the character has to be exactly on the floor, okay? And that's very important. If you go to the front view, you can see that the character is right on the floor, and also from the side view. Okay, if your character is not on the floor, you won't be able to use this technique. But this is easy. For example, with this character, he wasn't on the floor. So what I did was select all my character, and I created a group, which is why the whole character is in a group. As you can see, we have them separately: the body, the eyebrows, the teeth, the left eye, and the right eye. I put them all in a group, and like this you can relocate the character on the floor. If, for example, your character is below the floor like this, you can create the group, go to the front view, and start to relocate him, okay? And also from the side view. Okay? So it's very important that you know that we require our character to be on the floor, okay? So that's why we have him in a group. Now it's important that from the front view, besides of being on the floor, he has to be centered. meaning that the line of the grid has to split the character in two, especially if it's a symmetric model. This rig also works for asymmetric models, okay? But in this case our models are symmetric, so make sure that yours is in the center as well, and from the side view. Besides of being on the floor, make sure that the grid also splits the character in two, as centered as possible, okay? It's not something that requires you to be super precise, but we recommend to line up the character as much as you can from the two views, okay? Those are the few requirements for this method. So now let's start with the magic. Let's go to the folder of the course and we're going to open a folder named Rapid Rig Basic. This is what does the magic. It's a little script, very cool and free, and what we have to do is drag it to our window of Maya and we drop it here. This window will appear and this is what we use to do the magic. And I'd like you to make sure that from the menu show you click on show none, then show polygons to show the character, and in this case curves, okay? And even joints, so you see what's going to happen. Now from the menu shading, activate X-ray join in case you have a joint. For example, if we go to the menu rigging, skeleton, and let's create a joint. If you create a joint, for example, from the front view, let's create 3 joints, for example. Remember that when you activate X-ray join, you see the joints through the geometry. So that's why we are activating X-ray joint. Okay? And ready. Now, what we have to do is click here on Create Proxies. Let me explain this small window. It's divided in Create Proxies, meaning it will create a base skeleton, and what we have to do is locate the joints. Where goes the wrist, the fingers, the elbow, the shoulder, the clavicle, the neck, the column, the hips, the legs, everything. So really what you have to do is indicate this script where the joints are. After that, we have an option for you to duplicate the joints. So you just work on one side of the character. If it is a symmetric character, you can copy it from left side to right side or vice versa. So this actually accelerates the process. And finally we just generate the rig, and with that we will have mounted our complete rig. And there's a button for the skinning, for the bones or joints to actually move our character. So this is a plugin or a script, free, magical, and very complete. Okay, so I'm going to stop the lesson here just so the videos doesn't take too long, but take all that in consideration before you start. Remember, you need your character on the floor, and that from the front view and side view the character is perfectly centered, pretending that the character is split in two by the grid. And it's very easy from the front view. And from the side view, I would recommend that the grid goes right through the column to line up the character. So you may see the feet or chest or face ahead of the grid, but the columns should be on that line. That should be a good reference. Okay, so we'll meet in our next video. Okay, let's create now our initial rig and the guides, okay? So let's create the proxies. The proxies are basically the guides of the rig, okay? If you visualize the outliner, you can see that it creates a global controller with all these guides, as if it was the rig. But actually, and important to notice that these are not joints. If you can see here, I visualize the joints. Now I hit them and nothing happens. So actually the global controller as well as the guides are only curves, okay? It's important to know. These are not joints. This is what will indicate the script where the flexions are going to be. Okay? So let's begin and let's expand this button. So we remove the surface of the mask of selection, so we don't select our hero by accident. I'll hide the outliner to have more workspace. Okay, and now it's important to notice that the guides were also created on the floor, which is why it's important to have the character on the floor. And as I mentioned in our previous lesson, is that the column will be located right through the grid. That's how we have to line up our character. So the column has to be right in the center of the grid. Okay? So the first thing we have to do is go to the front view and selecting the global controller, I'm going to increase the size of my controllers with the key plus. What I like to do first is to escalate the base rig like this, so it fits this guide here in the center of the chest, or this joint guide. Remember that these are not joints but curves simulating being joints. Let's call them base joints or guide joints, okay? So this base joint should be on the chest, and this other base joint should be aligned with the arms, okay? Okay, from that, if we see our character from the side view, you can see if the column is correctly located. I think we should have the outliner so we see the name. So for example, if I select the global controller, it's called main, okay? And here you can see this is spine 1 or column 1, 2, 3. And it's important to know that the chest is the column 4, okay? Well, now we can start to adjust the base joint in the legs or in the arms, wherever you want. Usually I start here with the root bone. So we can put this one right here, okay, where we will put it usually. Check from the side view. And from there we go to the hips, which will be the beginning of the legs. Remember that this script is really good because you can move. Check this. If I activate rotate, it won't let me, because if I rotate the hip, the rig will not work. The same with scale. This is very intuitive. If the rotation and scale is locked, it means it's not advisable to do it. Okay, so you can start to locate where the left hip will go, okay, or the base of the leg, and from there we jump to the ankle, because between the hip and the ankle they will give position to the knee. So make sure to first locate the root, then you go to the hip, and now the ankle. And here as well, you can rotate and scale, but just moving it's enough. Located where the ankle should go. Okay, go to the front view. Is not well centered, so let's move it again. The ankle doesn't even need to be rotated or scaled. Okay, and after that, let's go with the ball, which is basically the instep. This one cannot be moved upwards or downwards. Also, this is why it's important to have your character on the floor. This one located here in this section of the instep, and after that, here we can actually move it a little to the side and rotate it, so it has a good rotation. This script is awesome because when it lets you rotate, scale or move is what can be done. But when it doesn't let you, it's because it's not advisable, so it's locked, okay? And even here, you can scale the joint so it fits. The other way is moving it in object mode and relocate it wherever works best for you. Now, This one is toe. Actually, for this one, a lot of people puts it here in the location of the instep, but we are going to put it in the tiptoe, so we can have all the reverse foot control that this base rig doesn't give us. Okay, so now, as resume, I'm not trying to do this one fast. We have other two characters where we can work fast to prove how fast we create a rig. But for this character, I'll be taking my time to explain everything. So the first thing we did was create the base rig. Then, with the global controller, we scale it so that from the front view, the chest matches with the chest of the character. And also these joints, the elbow, the wrist, the fingers, also matches with the character's geometry. That's how we determine the height of the base rig. From there, we fix the roof, relocating it, and we move to the hips, which is basically the base of the leg, where it starts to bend. Then we checked from the side view as well as from the front view, and we moved on to the ankle. The knee wasn't touched at all until now. We can move it at the end. Why? Because if you move the hip, it also moves the knee. So we adjust first the hip. The same happens with the ankle. That's why the knee goes last for moving. Okay? So now, let's center it. This arrow here is actually important to have it in the front. So when we move here, let me undo changes. Now we center it here. And from the side view, we can move it, okay? Always check that this arrow points to the front, okay? To where the pole vector will be looking, or the controller that controls the knee. So if you see the arrow pointing in the wrong direction, just fix it, pointing to the front, okay? This is very, very important. And remember that since the model is symmetric, we are just working on one side of the model. So we already see a good result. Let me move this a little. I'm just checking from all angles. It's important that the arrow points to the front, okay? Even pressing number 4. Now, if we want to apply the symmetry, we just select this joint, or even without selecting it, we just go here to the option left to right. So what it does is that it applies everything from the left side to the right side. Okay? Remember that you have to consider the position of your character to know which side you are working on. So it goes from left to right. Let's apply a mirror, click, and they will be adjusted automatically. And ready. This is perfect. Now we can move on to the arms. This is very simple. Before we move on to the arms, let's start adjusting the base. This will be the chest. Just move it if you see that it doesn't match perfectly the chest with the height of the arms. And you can move the chest alone now. Okay, I'm going to move it a little. And now we can move on to the clavicle, the base of the shoulder, from where the shoulder is going to move. It usually goes around here. You can think about an angry character when he raises his shoulders when he's angry. And so from here is going to rotate the shoulder, okay? And once that is done, we move on to the shoulder. This is the clavicle, the base of the shoulder, and so the shoulder could go around here. This seems like a good position. And for now, we skip the elbow as we did with the knee. For the same reason, here even if we move the clavicle, all the others move. That's why it's important to work from the center. But skipping the elbow, of course. Because when we move here the wrist, It also moves the elbow, the position of the elbow. So I'd like to locate my wrist around here. Here should be fine. And I'm going to lower it a little so all the geometry matches. Now we can go to the top view and locate the elbow. Move it slightly. I think maybe the elbow could go here instead. And from the top view, relocate it. Here should be perfect. Yeah, here's okay. As well, it's important that the arrow of the pole vector points to the back, so that the controller is here in the back, okay? And now we move on to the hands. We could apply a mirror from here, but we have to work with the hands. Okay, so let's finish that. Usually, it's easier from the top view, so we do the same. We relocate the wrist, so it's centered in the model. Also, verify that your shoulder is centered. We can move it slightly, the elbow too, and of course the clavicle. Make sure it's centered in the character. Now it's perfect. You can see that we avoided the work of creating the joints from zero, naming the joints and the pole vectors. And when we create the rig, you'll notice that the rig is basically finished. Okay, we have the wrist. This script by default comes with 5 flexions. So let's start. This will work for any human rig from 5 fingers or less, okay? If your character has 4 or 3 fingers, as we will see with the monkey, there won't be problems. But if it has 6 or 7 fingers, the other joints will have to be created manually. But it's also possible to add rig manually to this automatic rig. So there's no problem with that, okay? Now let's start to locate. Let's rotate here. And we can scale, so it matches. And let's go with the next one, right where the finger starts. Scale again to match it. And as you can see, this process is very simple. It's very easy, the way we are creating this rig. And we also avoid the local rotations, the rotations of the joints. So it's extremely simple the way we are creating this rig. Now, it's important to notice that in the fingers we have these little arrows, and these will actually represent the local rotations of the joints. They all should be pointing upwards, so that when we create the controllers, all of them match in the rotation, okay? So as I said, this is very simple. Let's go to the top view. This will be the thumb one. This joint is not for this one. Instead, it goes in the base of the thumb. It's very important to know. So this base joint should be around here. If we go to the perspective view, the base will be around here, okay? Remember that the thumb is rotated from here. So it will be like this, and we can start to give the right orientation. Maybe we'll move it a little backwards and start to relocate here according to the character. Here, instead of scaling, we can relocate every joint, and from the perspective view, it will be very important to give this inclination of the finger. The other fingers are totally pointing upwards. That's why we make those arrows point upwards. But here they should point in some sort of diagonal. So from here we rotate, and this can stay as it is. So now we have the guides of our fingers. Very simple, actually. As you saw, you can move the joints, and you can rotate them, scale them. So there's no room for error here, because what can't be done, the script will block it automatically. For example, this one doesn't let you scale or rotate, only move it. So you modify or will make every guide match with the character according to the rotation allowed. So there is no way you will go wrong. Okay, so that's very cool. Making the creation of the rig very simple. Now we're going to duplicate the position of the fingers, left to right, and ready. We can verify, of course, and as simple as that, we have the guides. The only thing left to do is relocate the joints of the column and the head, but we're going to stop the lesson here so it doesn't take too long. We'll meet in the next lesson to finish our rig. Okay, let's finish creating our rig. Let's move on to the column. Okay? First, verify that everything is in the right position. Usually, I don't work the column too much. Why? Because when we adjust the chest, if you can see here, the column lengthens proportionally with all the joints. So usually the distribution is correct. Unless, of course, your character has a special column or it has very specific measures. Then it will require us to relocate the joints, joint by joint. Okay? But in this case, you can even see that it won't let me move the joints, only to the sides, to give curves to the column. So the distance of the column is proportional. Okay? So we will only adjust this one, and maybe from the side view we'll relocate the joints like this. So basically, just by locating the chest, you should have a good distribution along the column. Okay? After the chest, which will be spine 4 or column 4, after that we have the neck. Okay? The neck, I usually locate it here where the head is going to flex the neck of the character. There are two flexions. What I do is situate one of them in the base of the neck, this one here, and the one of the head will be very similar, so I tend to locate them very close one to another and give the weight to the head instead of the neck. That's something I do, okay? What you can do is place neck in the base of the neck and head where the neck ends. Personally, I only use one. That's why I locate them close, giving all the weight to the joint of the head. But that's up to you. That's how it works best for me. So you can place the neck in the base of the neck, which will be around here, and then the head in the next subdivision. Okay? Then we also have a base joint for the jaw. So let's go with the jaw, locating it right here, and this will be the tip of the jaw. Since we're not going to work with facial rig, we could erase those joints, but later, not right now. And we have a joint for the left eye. This will be the right eye, but we are going to apply the mirror. And this is the head tip. Okay, so let's apply left to right and ready. We should have everything in position. Let's click on create or generate rig. Okay, it's important to notice that we have an option that says delete proxies. If you for any reason are going to keep modeling your character, or if it wasn't ready for the stage of rigging, just click delete proxies to erase this. Okay, but if we believe that our character is ready and everything is in position, then we click on generate rig. This button is just in case you don't need it anymore, if you're going to do something else, but clicking Generate Rig is going to generate a rig very complete, and it will delete the proxies. So when you click Generate Rig, you don't have to click Delete Proxies, because now your proxies or curves or guides are going to be an actual rig. Now you can visualize joints, and there we have them. Okay, let's make them smaller from menu Display, Animation, Joint Size. And to make it interactive, hold the key Control and the left click, then move it to the left to make them smaller. Now we can see that we have a very complete rig with just a few clicks. Okay? I'm going to stop this brief video here. In the next lesson, we are going to explore a little the rig we have, how we can personalize it, and I'm going to explain some adjustments to have an even more complete rig. Okay, let's test the rig we have, which our script generated. Remember that we have now actual joints, and we can see that going to the menu Show Joints. Okay, we have the joints and we have the curves or the controllers. Okay, everything is inside a global controller, meaning that we have a complete rig. And let's see the functions it has. That's very important. And it's also important to notice that it created two layers. The layer with all the joints to hide them or see them quickly, and a layer with the controllers. Only that when we use the controllers, the joints disappear. Okay? Now, this is excellent. Now let's see what kind of functions we have. I'll hide the joints. Never mind, we might need them. Okay, now let's check the hands. In the hands we have the switch, okay, for F key and I key. You can see that this one cannot be moved, rotated or scaled. So here happens the same as when we were creating the rig. Every controller comes with some or none options locked. In some cases you won't be able to move them. As default, it comes with F key. We have here the movement of the shoulder. Let me hide the character for now so we can focus on the rig, okay? We have the movement of the shoulder. Oh, that will actually be the clavicle. Here is the movement of the shoulder and the movement of the elbow. Notice that the movement of the elbow comes with the Z and Y restricted. Sorry, Z and X, because that's how the shoulder actually moves. But we could also unlock them without problems. Here we have the movement of the wrist. The switch look follows the movement, and everything comes with value 0. Okay? In gray we have the attributes that cannot be moved, rotated or scaled. In the hands happens exactly the same. Every joint comes with its controller. And that's great because as you can see, the local rotations are working perfectly. It has value 0 and it is pointing to where we located the finger. The same happens here. It's in the rotation we put our thumb. Okay? A quick way to make a fist is, remember, select all these controllers and rotate them at once. All at once, okay? And upwards as well. So this is perfect, and we have our switch for F key. Set it to 0, and now you see that we have everything made automatically all the time we save creating this rig. If you follow the course Creating Whole Volume 3 Rigging, the course is excellent because you learn to make this from scratch, and sometimes that knowledge is required to create personalized rigs, but for characters bipedal. And not only bipedal, maybe a character with a tail. We could perfectly add the rig of the tail to this rig, that we generated automatically. So we saved a lot of time. As you can see, we have this switch that's working perfectly. Of course, you can move the hand and rotate. We did all of this in our course of Hawk from scratch. Another characteristic that I like, that is very intuitive, is that to where you move your pole vector or your elbow, let me switch to global mode. This one is automatically directed. Look, I'll move it downwards and it's curved on its own, following the elbow. So this is something simple, but it looks very well. And of course, our movement of the shoulder works perfectly. Okay, so everything is working perfectly. Obviously, when you switch from F key to I key, there is always this transition. That's normal, of course. We are very likely going to add a lesson of plus for... this is very normal. You see this in every rig. But there's a function for moving from F key to I key that doesn't move. Both of them keep the position, and that would be great. Let's see if we add it at the end of the course. But you can see that we have a rig very complete. Let's move on to the column. Here everything is very intuitive. Obviously this is an F key column. The same happens here. This will be the neck, but I usually don't need it. I focus on the one of the head, because it has the same movement. Remember that there are two joints very close one to another, and I rather use the head. But we have it there just in case. We have the jaw, which in this case we won't be using because we are not including facial, but we have it there anyway. What else? We also have the eyes, which we are not using since we are not including facial, but it controls, see, those small joints. Okay, so this is actually an excellent rig, very complete. Let's check the center of gravity. Crouches down all the character. If you are, for example, here with F key, I key, sorry, the hand stays put like this. So this is working perfectly. And we have an additional controller for the hips, the movement of the hips. Unlike the root controller that doesn't move all the body, it just moves the hips, which is great. For walking movements, for example, give him some personality, and maybe in a female character we could have more movement in this area. Okay, so that's perfect. In the bottom we have the basic controller of I key. The same happens here. To where you orient your pole vector, this will move, which is perfect. Okay, so far I believe we have a perfect rig. In the next lesson we are going to see the disadvantage of this rig and how to solve it. Okay, let's see the disadvantages of this automatic rig. They shouldn't really represent a problem since we are going to modify the rig to correct that disadvantage, okay? So we were checking the bottom part where we have a controller for the hips. We also have the switch for I key and F key. This is not used that much. It's used, but it's very specific the case where you need it. Okay, and in the knee we have the other axis locked, so the rotation is similar to a human. We can unlock them without problems, okay? And here we have the rotation of the ankle and the instep. Okay, this is something that I've never seen myself needing it. This is not really something that you will use a lot. But the problem lies here, for the foot, because the attribute of the foot the control, we have one to rotate the instep, which is perfect, but we don't have one, as you can see here, the option to rotate from the heel. From the heel we can rotate, and we can't rotate from the tip. Okay, so we don't have the necessary control for our character to do the most basic movement, which is walking, because we have rotation of instep but not of the heel. Okay, and we don't have the rotation from the tiptoe, but we can of course correct that. We are going to modify this rig to have those controllers, and we will then have a complete rig, a corporal rig of course, and with barely some clicks. Okay, so let's do those modifications. It's not something complicated. Let's visualize our character. Okay, and the only thing we have to do is first let's also visualize, you know what, never mind, let's hide the character so we have a clear view. Go to menu show, let's visualize the I key handles. When you visualize the I key handles, you might not see any. Here we should have one in the ankle, because we have the I key mode, the I key handle that goes from here to the ankle. So that means that they are hidden. Okay, how can we visualize those handles? Go to outliner, go to menu show, object, and let's specify that we want to see only the I key handles. And we will have then the global controller, and from there we will have the I key handles. As you can see, these are kind of gray. Those are hidden. And precisely those are the ones of the arms. In the arms we don't care about any modification, so let's focus now on the left foot. The left foot corresponds to this one that starts with L. Okay? And the other one will be R, right side. So let's focus on the left foot. Let's expand this node. Here we have the control, and inside the control we have the I key handles. As you can see, they are hidden. That's why they are gray. Okay? As you can see, we have three I key handles: the finger, the instep, and the one here in the ankle. So since they are hidden, let's visualize them. Select both pivots. They are parented to two pivots. Select both and press Shift H to visualize them, or it will be the same to go to the menu show. I don't remember where is it. Go to menu display, show, and let's click on show selections. So if we have them selected, they will be shown, and there we have it. Okay, now we can see the I key handle of the ankle. We have here the I key handle of the instep and the I key handle of the finger, called toe. We have three I key handles. Okay, for our rig to work, or to give the functionality of the reverse foot control, reverse foot control is the name given to the joints that gives you the functionality to move the foot from the heel, the instep, and the tip. Now we see the I key handles. We really haven't made any changes. We only have visualized the I key handles. We located the handles in the outliner and we visualized them. So we are not going to modify anything. We are going to create those joints that are going to give us the mobility of the reverse foot control, or the mobility of the heel, instep, and tiptoe. Okay, let's go to menu rigging, go to skeleton, create joints, open the option box, default options, and let's go to the right view. So what we are going to do now is Let's visualize the character, visualize polygons. Now let's create that series of bones that we have created in the course of Hulk, the monkey and the superhero. In those three, we created these joints chain to have that mobility. This is really easy, so let's add the first joint right in the heel. After that, we are going to create another joint. We're going to start here on the top and let's press Shift. Look, I'm pressing the left click of my mouse, then I hold Shift so the creation is completely straight. So this is the second joint and it goes right in the tip of the foot. I prefer to put it in the tip, okay? Then I create another joint and I hold again Shift. Here it is adhered in vertical, so it's not really necessary to hold Shift. But I do have to locate it in this area, okay? Right on the instep with the other joint. You can set it just a little upwards, but make sure it is very close to that joint, okay? The instep. And finally I create the last one as well. I create it here outside and I put it right with the other in the ankle. Then press enter. Okay, so now I'll focus on this joint. I'll press 6 to exit illumination mode so I don't get confused. So this is what we have, a hierarchy of joints. This is joint 1, the joint 2 is the tip, the joint 3 is the instep, and the joint 4 is the ankle. So now let's name them. RFC of reverse foot control, heel. Okay? And you can press the down key in your keyboard to navigate through the hierarchy of bones. This will be RFC tip or tiptoe. I'm doing this slowly just to explain it, okay? Obviously, it would be much faster to create a rig if I weren't explaining. And we're going to do this with the other two characters, okay? RFC instep. Okay. And last one, RFC ankle. Remember that this is the only modification we're going to do to the rig, so this is really worth it. It's a small modification that this rig by default doesn't give us, but we can modify it to have this function. Okay, I'm ready. Now let's move it to the other series of joints. These joints goes at the same positions as the others. So let's activate this axis X so the arrows turns yellow, and let's hold V to adhere to vertices, and the wheel of the mouse clicked. Close to this joint, the center of this joint, okay? Now you can go to the front view. It will be like this. Obviously the tiptoe is different, so we have to drag it. Okay, never mind, the tiptoe is in the right position, the others are not. So what we are going to do is first to adhere according to this joint. Then the instep, let's adhere it to this joint, and the ankle to his respective joint, okay? But this is actually wrong, because the heel is not in the right position. The heel should be here in the middle. Okay, so let's navigate through the hierarchy. Now this joint, we adhere it here, the instep here, and the ankle here. Like this, the joints should be exactly where they are going to have their function. Here, because from here the heel starts to rotate. Here, because from there the tiptoe rotates. Here to rotate the instep. And of course this one for the ankle. Okay? And what I like to do to avoid confusing the joints we created with the ones of the rig, I simply select them, open Attribute Editor, and let's go to the option Display, Drawing Overrides, and let's assign a red color. Like this, we will know that this series of joints are the ones we created. Now, there is something very important here. Let's rotate this joint. It's important that if you rotate, it rotates only in one axis, okay? If you can see, we only alter the position of these joints, but never the rotation. Look, here the position is altered, but its rotation is 0. The same here and here. That is something very important since we want to control the rotation in a single axis. Okay, here just in seed, here as well only seed for the tip, and here as well only seed for the heel. So it's very important to make sure that the rotation is not altered. The position is not important, but the rotation is. The rotation should be 0. So these joints, we can move them, but not rotate them, okay? It's very, very important. So let's stop the lesson here. In the next lesson, we are going to do the modifications in the rig to see how it looks. Okay, in this lesson, let's do the modification of the rig. But first, let's copy this series of joints to the other side, so we don't do it again from scratch. Okay, so go to Menu Rigging, go to Skeleton, and then click on the option Mirror Joints. And here, we decide through which axis we are going to do the mirror. In this case, our indicators of axles will be from the right side to the left side with Y and Z. Okay, so let's specify Y and Z. Regarding the names, these are not needed because remember that this series of joints, they don't go in the weighting. They really only affect the functionality of the rig, but these are not weighted, so we don't need to name them since in the component editor we don't need to specify them, okay? Because they won't be in the weighting. So just click on Mirror and Ready. I'll deactivate surfaces so I don't select geometry, and let's do the modification. The modification is actually simple. Let's eliminate the pivot foot. We want to keep this key handle. This is the only key handle we want to keep. Okay, so let's eliminate this key handle, but since it is parented to this pivot, when we eliminate the pivot, the key handle toe will go as well, so we can just eliminate the pivot, okay? And here we don't want to eliminate the whole pivot because it has inside the key handle we want to keep. So if we eliminate the whole pivot, it will also eliminate the key handle. So let's just eliminate only the key handle bolt. And now we only have the key handle we want to keep. A way to check if you deleted correctly the key handles is to move down the character like this and having this function. The instep and the tiptoe are rotating downwards, okay? So now let's insert our key handles. We eliminated these two key handles so that these attributes stop working. Basically, we are eliminating these attributes with the personalized function we want. So, before we eliminate these attributes, let's create our key handles, okay? So far, we have only eliminated the key handles of the tiptoe and the instep. So let's go to the menu Skeleton, create key handle, default option. It's important that the key handles is as rotate plane solver. By default, is like this. And let's add an key handle from this joint to the instep. And press Y to repeat the operation. From the instep to the tiptoe. If you have followed our courses of rigging, then this should be familiar to you. We did this in a rig of Hulk and the rig of the monkey. Now, we have three I key handles, the automatic one created by the rig, the instep, and the tiptoe that we created, okay? It's not necessary to name them because this won't be in the waiting. When you name a join, it's to identify it in the waiting. So neither this series of joins nor the I key handles are going in the waiting, so we don't need to name them. The next step is to parent each I key handle to his respective red join, meaning this I key handle, hold shift, select this join, and we parent it with P. A sign that we did it right is that the I key handle will turn red. Now this I key handle, we parent it to this joint, and again it will turn red. And lastly, this I key handle, we parent it. We have to be careful. Parent it to... This is another I key handle, by the way. Oh, okay. It corresponds to the one in the back. Okay. This I key handle we parented to his respective red join and press P. Our three I key handles should turn red, okay? It's important that you don't make a mistake. Remember that we are visualizing the I key handles, but if we visualize the locators, there are some locators here that are very similar to the I key handles. They are green. We have one here, and that's the only one I believe. So don't get confused and select this locator and parent it to the red join. That's why it's very important to only visualize the I key handles, curves, and geometry, but not locators, okay? That's very important. And ready. We have basically done the most complicated step. Now, what's left to do? You can test, of course, moving the center of gravity. His foot is not moving past the ground, but now it's working with our I key handles and not the ones of the rig, okay? Which is what we wanted. Being our I key handles, our series of joints of the reverse foot control come into play. And that's what the rig was missing. Okay, now we can eliminate these attributes that, by the way, stopped working. The attributes that came by default with the rig. So let's eliminate them from the menu Modify, Delete Attribute, Select, Delete, Select, Delete. Okay, and let's create our own attributes from the menu Modify, Add Attribute, with the default options, which will be one floating attribute, scalar, default options. Just add the name heel, instep, and tiptoe, which are the attributes that this rig didn't have, okay? And now we only have to connect the rotations of the heel, the instep, and the tiptoe to our new attributes, okay? So let's do the connection from the menu Window, General Editors, and go to Connection Editor, okay? Now let's select the controller, charge it from the left side. Let's connect first the heel, okay? Select the joint that controls the heel, RFC heel, load it in the right side, and go to its rotation. Here it is. Activate the tool Rotate to see the axis, and of course it's sit, okay? How we know it's sit? Because the red one is for X, the green one is for Y, and so this is rotation sit. And the rotation in sit of our joint turns yellow, meaning that something else controls it, okay? And of course is our attribute heel, which is perfect. Now let's do the remaining connections. Let's connect the instep. We can select the joint heel, and with the key of directions from our keyboard, move down to the instep. We charge it in the right side, rotation, and the axis should be the same, so rotation is it. And now it controls the rotation of the instep. And lastly, let's connect the tip toe. Charge it in the right side, verify that is the same rotation in seat, and ready. Easily we have added that functionality of the reverse foot control that our automatic rig didn't have. Okay, now we have the movement of the heel that the rig didn't have, the movement of the instep that we had, just not the right one, and the movement of the tip toe that it didn't have. Okay, of course it works like this, and our control of the center of gravity still works, and the hips. Okay, so this is how we added this function that we didn't have before. Let's return the rotation to 0. What's left to do? Of course, parent the joint of the reverse foot control heel. That's the one that by hierarchy controls the others. We hold Shift, select the control, and press P. Now this control obviously moves the foot. This is normal. When you move the foot, this automatically will move, always looking to the knee. The knee, of course, still works, the ball vector. Additional to that, we have rotation in heel, instep, and tiptoe. So very easily we have added a function that our rig didn't have. This automatic rig that we created in just a few minutes. Like this, we have a similar rig to Hulk and a similar rig to the monkey, but with less time. With the Hulk, we took a lot of time, and you can see the amount of lessons it has to see how long it took. And here, in matter of minutes, we created a similar rig in just a few minutes. Okay, so let's stop the lesson here. In the next lesson, as review, we are going to configure the reverse foot control of the right side. And then we continue with our course.